I'm pleased to introduce Roel Doldersum today. Roel is our product manager in Rada Netherlands. Excuse me. Roel's an expert in Legionella. He's sat on a number of advisory panels and boards, has been instrumental in developing the guidelines on Legionella and water systems in the Netherlands. I'm sure what he has to say today will be really useful for you. Sorry, excuse me. So without any further ado, I will hand you over to Roel for the webinar this morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stu. This is the first part of my presentation, and it's very stressful because it's a technology, but from what I see now, it's working. From what you've noticed from my first few sentences, I'm Dutch, so apologies if I do not find the right wording, but English is not my mother's tongue. But I will try to compensate with some enthusiasm and do this presentation about ensuring safe water supplies following COVID-19 lockdown. What's on the agenda? On the agenda are the risks presented by dormant water systems, the action facility managers must take now with the water controls, and what can we learn from lockdown and future-proofing water systems. So the risks presented by dormant water systems. What's the issue? As all over the world, there's been a closure of businesses during lockdown, and this has resulted in many water systems being dormant. To admit, in Holland, we should not have made them dormant. It happened, but we have our duty of care, we have our control measures, and we should do some things. But in the panic that came through this pandemic, it did result at the end in dormant water systems. And these, together with, these create the perfect environment for bacteria, including Legionella, to thrive, because it's dormant. And on top of that, the summer months mean warm water, and warm water increases the growth of Legionella as well, as we all know. And at the end, this means a safe water supply, which is central, and we have the duty of care in Holland, in the UK, to ensure that staff, visitors and patients are safe when they use the water of our public water systems. So first, have a look at Legionella. What is Legionella? It is, in the meantime, a very well documented bacteria, a waterborne pathogen. We've known it since 1976. It was there, of course, long millions of years ago, but then we found out that there is this bacteria, which is almost impossible to prevent from entering water systems. In fact, in Holland, it has not proven to be possible to prevent it from entering. And when it is in your water, and if the water is contaminated by inhaling the aerosols into your lungs, there is a possibility that you will get the Legionnaire's disease, which is a pneumonia-like infection that can be fatal. In fact, what we've seen in latest research is probably in 10% of all cases, it is fatal. What do we know more about Legionella? What have we learned? We know that there are 3 factors which combined create the perfect environment for Legionella to grow. First one, stagnant water. The bacteria loves to be in stagnant water without flow, and also, which is immediately the second factor, it needs biofilm or bacteria. In the biofilm, he will find his food, and biofilm will grow faster when water is stagnant. And the third one is the water temperature. And what's written here is that it's the optimum temperature for growth is between 25 and 45 degrees C, which is true actually, but it already starts growing at 20 degrees C. So let's have a look, a more closer look to each 3 of these factors. First of all, water stagnation. Stagnant water, as mentioned, allows Legionella bacteria to grow and multiply, because it just doesn't like flow. and stagnant water creates biofilm in which it finds its food. And what is stagnant water? If you look at the picture on the right, the third vertical blue pipe from the left is a piece of dead lag, if you look closely. And in dead lags you will find stagnant water, of course. Is that the only way we create stagnant water? No, of course not. If we don't use our outlets, water will be stagnant. And so we've seen in early days that during holiday times, when installations were not used, there was quite a lot of stagnant water. And now during lockdown, we've seen that in many installations. By the way, the dead lag you see on the picture is one which is absolutely not allowed in Holland. It's not allowed to have any dead lags in your installations anymore. How long may a part of the tube be from which on it will be a dead lag? This is from 5 times the diameter of the pipe in Holland. Don't know what it is in the UK. Also, when the water is stagnant, the disinfection dissipates over time, meaning that the Legionella bacteria gets more possibilities for growth. So water stagnation is very important for growth of Legionella bacteria. Next important factor is temperature. What we know is below 20 degrees C, the bacteria survives in a dormant state, and yes, even below 0. No time to go deeper into it, but this is the reality. Then there's an optimum growth between 20 and 45 degrees, where you saw in an earlier slide that we said 25. This has a reason. In fact, it grows from 20 degrees on and higher. However, we are not able, at least when talking for Holland, we are not able to lower all our cold water temperatures constantly up to below 20 degrees C. So we've said in our guidelines, we will make it 25 degrees C. But optimum growth between 20 and 45 degrees. In fact, the real optimum growth is somewhere around 36 degrees C, which is not by coincidence or body temperature. Come back to that later. Above 45 degrees, it will be killed. And at 50 degrees C, 90% of the bacteria will be killed within 2 hours. We call it the decimal reduction time at a certain temperature, and at 50 degrees C, the decimal reduction time is 2 hours. At 60 degrees C, the decimal reduction time is only 2 minutes, and above 70 degrees, it's very fast. Good to know, this is only for the research from which we retrieve this information is for bacteria that are free swimming in the water, and they can be hidden in sediment, in biofilm. I'll come back to that later. And then we need higher temperatures to get this percentage of kill. So they do not multiply above 50 nor below 20 and grow best between 20 and 45 degrees C. Third factor for biofilm growth, and keep in mind these 3 factors, temperature, stagnancy of water and biofilm growth, are the 3 factors on which all our guidelines and norms, at least in Holland, and as far as I know, also in the UK, have been built. They have formed the basis for all guidelines, for all measures you have to take. And biofilm being the third factor. What is biofilm? It's a sticky substance created by bacteria and providing nutrition for Legionella bacteria. It's formed on the inside of water supply piping and valves, and it's encouraging bacterial growth. Everyone who's having a garden hose, and if it's used for a period of time, if you then stick your finger inside, you will feel the slimy, sticky substance. That's the biofilm. And these biofilms, they protect Legionella from heat and disinfection. In fact, what happens is Legionella bacteria, they need food to grow and to multiply. And the main things they need are complex amino acids and iron. And these complex amino acids and iron, they will find in amoebas. And an amoeba is a single cell creature living in the biofilm. And this single cell eats bacteria. When a single cell amoeba is, we have a name for it, I think you call it morph. It will eat, but not with teeth, of course, it will eat the Legionella bacteria, but the clue is that the Legionella bacteria lets himself be eaten by the amoeba, because he will find inside this amoeba iron and complex amino acids, from which he will eat, through which he will grow, and through which he will multiply. And by the way, a Legionella bacteria can multiply on its own. You don't need two. What happens inside this amoeba is the Legionella bacteria will multiply a number of times, depending on the size of the amoeba, and when there's no food anymore, a number of Legionella bacteria go to find new amoebas in the biofilm and for food and grow and multiply. And what happens when these bacteria are free swimming and are in our drinking water, and by coincidence we inhale them? These free swimming bacteria will come into our lungs, and from our lungs into our blood, and in our blood they will look for food, complex amino acids and iron. But there are no amoebas. But what do we have in our blood? We have white blood cells, and these white blood cells are very similar to amoebas. They also eat bacteria. They give us resistance. The Legionella bacteria then lets himself be eaten by a white blood cell, and there he will find his food. So he will at the end kill the white blood cell and have multiplied and go into your blood and find more white blood cells, and through that lower your resistance, which will make you get pneumonia, which will even be fatal in some in a percentage of 10%. That's a bit of the story behind Legionella from a Dutch point of view. And when I say Dutch point of view, by the way, that will probably not be much different. No, I'm sure not be much different, but the Legionella bacteria are pretty much the same in the UK, in the US, and in Russia than they are in Holland. So further on, what action facility managers must take now with their water controls, having in mind Legionella and knowing we are in the COVID-19 pandemic. It's as easy as this. We have to manage our infection control. Sorry for when something a bit wrong for me, or infection control regimes. And to manage your infection control regimes, we have to take hygiene control measures. And a very important one is duty flushing. Duty flushing is done to prevent stagnation. Stagnation, because as we mentioned before, that's one of the 3 factors for Legionella to grow. And duty flushing can be done in 2 ways. You can do it manually, you can do it automatically. Both of them work, but you have to do your duty flushings. Also, a reason for this is you need 3 factors for growth of Legionella. If you take out one, you will minimize the risk of Legionella growth. It is very difficult to keep the temperature controls, the temperature under 20 and above 45 degrees, definitely when installations are closed. Duty flushing, though, is at least the easiest way to do something. Also, sediment, the 3rd factor for growth. You cannot do anything about the biofilm and the sediment in your installation. So duty flushing is a possibility to minimize your risk of bacterial growth, to minimize your risk of Legionella growth. And then this duty flushing, what happens? During duty flushing, water is flushed away from the central system and carries away waterborne pathogens, also amoebas, by the way. And by carrying them away, they're not in the water anymore. You've got fresh water in your system, which is safe. It displaces contaminated stagnant water, also seen as dead legs as long as they are in front of an outlet, and it dislodges biofilm lining from inside the inside of the pipe, depending on the velocity, by the way. So, even frequently used outlets should be duty flushed at least weekly to prevent water stagnation. What I know from Holland, to give a bit of an insight, is depending on the risk we have in our installation, and the risk can be the installation itself, but also a risk can be the resistance of the users of the installation. So an elder people's home or hospital are always high risk in Holland, only because of the people that will use the installation. We have high risks, we have low risk installations. In many high risk installations, I think over here that weekly flushing is not enough, and it should be done, in fact, daily. And how should it be flushed? I know in the UK it's the temperature, it should be flushed until the temperature is below 25 degrees C for cold water. What we see in Holland is we say it should be below 20 where possible, and then for a period of 10 seconds on a stable temperature, just to keep it as safe as possible. And I should also then say, if I mention Holland, keep in mind we have probably even more strict guidelines and norms as you have, but that also has to do with the fact that we don't add any chemicals to our water. So our water is as nice as the bottled water you buy in a shop. When we talk about duty flushing, we can also say, well, are our products then COVID safe? In other words, how can products help avoid bacterial growth? Can they? Yes, they can. How can they? Well, there are new products designed to reduce waterborne pathogens. There are products designed that meet the demands of infection control and user safety. What do I mean by that? Products that can do control measures automatically. And there were, in early days, taps and showers were seen as passive tools. In these days, they can play a very nice role in preventing waterborne infections in public installations. How can they do that? Through greater bacterial control, back to that later, higher levels of hygiene. When you would do a thermal disinfection, they could do it even automatically irregularly, precise temperature control. It can take care of time and cost savings. What if you can do a duty flush automatically instead of manually? You will save a lot of money on labor, and you always have accurate record keeping. So, learning from lockdown and waterproofing systems, what is happening? Where are we at this moment? We are, in fact, all over the world in a very uncertain future, and this uncertain future gives us the COVID-19 challenges, which are constantly evolving, but which also give us challenges on our public buildings with their installations. And while lockdown restrictions are easy, the challenges and the risk remain. And what I'm definitely sure of, that we will sharpen our focus on infection control for really the coming time, maybe even forever. Why do I say that? I remember that in 1999 in Holland we had our first huge outbreak of Legionella. 32 people died, and at that moment our government said we have to change our way of thinking about water systems and installations. And we made within a few years a lot of new guidelines, and all way of designing, installing, maintaining and servicing installations has totally changed. We in fact leveled up in Holland our whole way of everything that had to do with water systems. It's gone up to close to universal degrees, if I can say so. It has to do with hygiene. It has to do with safety, and it will only be more dangerous and strict for the coming years. So sharpened focus on infection control will definitely be a thing that will stay on forever, in my opinion. And therefore, also in this uncertain future, you and we need critical partners now more than ever. So what can we do? What we did, and actually we started this without being able to look into the future, we harnessed new technology for which we live in the right time. I mean, this is the time in which we can do a lot online. Like, I would not have believed 10 years ago that at this moment I would sit behind the screen somewhere in a small village in Holland and talking to you all, and it can happen. There are a lot of new technologies, and these technologies can be used in the right way to minimize the risk of infection or taps, and to give peace of mind to facility managers, because the facility managers and owner of public buildings have the duty of care to supply safe, healthy water to everyone who uses the water. It can be staff, it can be visitors, it can be patients. You have the duty of care to do it, and through new technology, facility managers and building owners can really have peace of mind, because the products will do what is needed in way of control measures, regimes for infection control, keep installations, to help keep installations safe. What do we mean with these products? What if products could have smart automated hygiene measures? What do we mean with that? What if you could set your digitally your flushing options, your thermal disinfection? That's more for Holland, I know, less for the UK at the moment, but you never know what will happen in the future. But duty flushing, if you can set your options, and if you can take care that the new products will do it automatically, that's a big advantage. It removes the need for staff to undertake hygiene measures. Also keep in mind, if there would be a serious contaminated water and you would have staff that would do hygiene measures, they would be at risk. So if a product does it, there is no risk from that point of view as well. And hygiene measures only happen when required, conserving resources and saving money. What do we mean with that? When should you do a duty flush? A flush, when is there a stagnancy of water? Depending on the installation, after a day or after 7 days. Mainly the control measure will be duty flush every 7 days. But what if over 5 days the outlet would be used already? Why should you then flush the 7th day? It's not needed, so you don't need labor to do it, and you will not spoil water, and if it's blended, energy. And it would definitely give you an increased accuracy, removing the potential for human error. What do we mean with that? What would happen if you would have manual duty flushing and someone goes on holiday? Is there a replacement that knows all the outlets that have to be duty flushed? If they become ill, is there someone who will do it for them? Are they logging it? Are they storing data about their control measures on the right way? All these potential errors are minimized by smart automated products. What else would they do? Because you can say, okay, we have our control measures, we have our duty flushing, our temperatures, checks, you can do them by hand, and you can write down in a logbook what you've done. But what if you could do it smart? Have your data logging, monitor, log and analyze data of, for instance, duty flushing. If the rule is you have to flush until the temperature is below 25 degrees, and your product is doing that automatically, but also logging the data for it, then you have a big advantage. Even better when this data is automatically analyzed by the product, saying yes, you did well, or even more important, if something went wrong, alarms you that it was not right and you have to take action. It will also give you the accurate evidence of compliance with guidelines, and this is something, now speaking for Holland, which is very important in our part of the world. We have to supply the evidence that we did all control measures. For each duty flush, we have to write down automatically or manually date, time, what the result was. So, and you need to have these records, this logbook, and show it where needed, and when you have someone who's checking from the government. And by the way, this data logging will also optimize your system, because if you know all the data, you may also know that temperatures are maybe too high in a certain part of your building, that there is much less use of a few outlets. So why not stop using them and cutting away the pipes so that you don't have these extra pipes? All these optimization of your systems is possible with data logging. And what about smart design? What if your product would be smart design, meaning non-touch flow, non-touch temperature control, and minimizing through that the risk of cross-infection? Cross-infection, when we talk about Pseudomonas, a big issue. If you don't touch the tap, you will not have the risk of cross-infection. New products are available that can do that. And about the internal surfaces, where it's happening, where water is mixed, where water is flowing, what if we would reduce the size? So less volume means less possibilities for growth. What if we would have smooth bore products? Smooth bore means less easy buildup of biofilm, buildup of sediment, making a product smarter and safer. And smooth, don't forget smooth exterior surfaces so to make cleaning easy and more effective. In summary, COVID-19 has sharpened focus all over the world on infection control and hygiene. And we should not forget that COVID-19 is a big issue, but we should not have problems with Legionella afterwards through dormant systems that create a perfect environment together with summer temperatures for bacterial growth. And also there are benefits of the nowadays technology with new products that have automated hygiene measures, smart controls, create proof that you've done what you could do to keep your installation safe. That's it. It's only short. I like to go into detail to many things. I don't get the time from my colleagues in the UK, maybe better. Back to you, Stu.
Thank you, Roel. That was great, really informative, and I think some really insightful and useful points in your presentation. So thank you. We have had some questions come in already, but if anybody else does have questions, then obviously please feel free to add them to the chat box, and we'll try and answer a few of those now. So the first question that's coming is on duty flushing, Roel. So outside of healthcare facilities, how often should we be duty flushing our water systems?
Outside of healthcare. The right answer, Stu, should be, we will come back to you. And because I do know what is happening in Holland. and I'll tell a little bit about it, but I don't know in how far this is similar to the UK. But what we see in Holland is if an installation is if there's a risk, it is depending always on the risk how often you should duty flush. And we have changed our vision in Holland the last couple of years. There's been a lot of research done by our approval institute, Kiva, and they did research on installations where Legionella was found. And what they found is in 80% of all installations where you find Legionella, cold water is infected. Cold water is a very important source. So what we have a kind of a rule of thumb for Holland is risk what we call high risk installations, and these are all healthcare buildings, swimming pools, saunas, prisons, asylum centers, hotels. There you should do a daily flush, normally when the temperature is, the ambient temperature in the building is above 25 degrees C. For all other public buildings, we normally stay on once a week as a rule of thumb. I can go deeper, but then I would go totally into guidelines of Holland, and maybe the vision in the UK is a bit different. But depending on is the temperature higher, more flushing in those situations where you have or can have people that have less resistance.
Okay.
Is that, yep.
Right, thank you. Thank you. And the next question, what opportunities are there to improve current water management regimes?
Yeah, what opportunities are there? Good question. Depending on what current water management regime people have, I would say what we see over here, and what I see a bit in Germany and in Belgium and in the UK as well, is there's still the water world, the water system world, the sanitary world is quite a conservative world, has always been, and the new products developed have a lot of opportunities. We can to give an idea, without promoting Rada too much, but the taps you saw at the end of the presentation are kind of small computers that can be networked. You can online see what is happening, so you can check temperatures, you can duty flush automatically. That would improve our management system, looking at Legionella, dramatically if we do that more. We see that a lot happening at the moment in Holland already. Maybe also because we're a small country, our infrastructure for internet is, they say, the best, but we are like Americans. We also must now and then think we're the best in something, probably because we're so small. Having said that, we have a very good internet structure. We are probably as people quite open to new technologies, and we see so many building management systems and water management systems of networked products. For instance, in Holland, we do a lot of networking with a product called Rada Outlook. Probably 80% of all our sporting facilities these days have a Rada Outlook system, networked, automatic duty flushing, even automatic thermal disinfection. And these control measures, automating control measures at the end of the day, I would say is the best way to improve current water systems. Is that enough answer for you, Stu? I hope for the person. If not, you can always tackle me and send me an email.
Yes, I think you probably answered. The next question was, what would be the one thing you would recommend to reduce risk of infection in water systems? And I think you probably already covered that with automated duty flushing.
Yeah.
We've also had a similar question, which sort of and again, you covered this in your presentation, but might be just worth running over again. Is the question is, what benefits does smart duty flushing have over the traditional manual approach?
Yeah, okay, just as an explanation, if you have a traditional manual duty approach of duty flushing, some person will go, but it's a weekly duty flush, weekly along all taps, flush them until there's a certain temperature, write it down in a logbook, and also the taps that have been properly used. Because if you duty flush once a week, the only thing you do is you simulate that you're using it. That's the only thing. And by the way, maybe good to tell here, because I forgot during my presentation, it's not only because of Legionella control that you should flush. At least in Holland, and I think in the UK it's the same. We have the duty of care as facility managers of public buildings to supply all users with safe water. And with safe water, when not looking at Legionella, we also have to supply it without smell, without taste, and without color. Saying that, I remember in your country the smell is now and then through chlorine a bit less good, I think, but yes, we have to do that. And this is also a reason for duty flushing, to have a proper safe water apart from Legionella. And smart duty flushing is as easy as that. If you have a product that counts the usages of the water, it will have less spoiling of water, because if the tap is used, it will not duty flush, and when it's a smart duty flush system, thereby saving energy and saving water. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Roel. I think that brings us to the end of our questions and the end of our webinar this morning. Thank you all for your time and effort, and thank you everybody for attending this morning. Please remember you can get in contact with us through our website, which is radacontrols.com. If you have any further questions, yeah, please contact us through the website or Rebecca's email address, which is in the invitation to the webinar this morning. So yeah, I think I'm going to draw it to a close there and just say thank you everybody for attending, and we hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.